everyone. Welcome back to the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for the latest episode of Broncos Now. As always, I'm your host, Sydney Jones. And coming up on today's episode, Hall of Fame safety Steve Atwater joins the show to get his thoughts on the Broncos alumni weekend and to discuss Sunday's loss versus the Washington Commanders. All that and more coming up. Joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio for today's episode of Broncos Now is the Hall of Famer himself, Mr. Steve Atwater. Steve, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Sid. Thanks for having me on again.
Absolutely. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I mean, I'd be a little bit better if we had gotten the dub, but hey, it goes like that sometimes. Hopefully next week. It's always next week.
For sure. Well, I know it was an exciting weekend for you, Steve, it being alumni weekend. How was that, getting reunited with everyone?
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome. And a couple of people that I hadn't seen really in many, many years since we played. Keith Traylor, he was there. He was our nose guard. And then our strength and conditioning coach, Rich Tootin, was there. And, man, getting to see those guys, it was such a joy. And all the rest of the guys, too. But them, because I hadn't seen them in quite a while, it was really cool.
That is cool. I know you're on the field really every week, Steve, for every home game. But how was it being on the field with all your Super Bowl 33 teammates and just being honored at halftime? It was really cool from my perspective.
Oh, yeah. And it's always such an honor, too. And, everybody was telling me how thankful they were to be there and just how great it was. Got to give our props to the ownership group, the Walton Penner ownership group, man. They did it big for us, and we really appreciate it. It was a great time. And like I said, one of my guys, he was like, hey, man, I needed this. This is like, I was going into a little bit of a funk, but this is just what I needed. So, it's much appreciated.
That's amazing. Well, of course, you guys have the Super Bowl 33 reunion this weekend, and then the Broncos are heading to Miami. How fitting, because you guys won the Super Bowl down there that year.
That's right.
Kind of ironic.
Go down there and do it again.
I know. I'm sure you have so many special memories from that city.
Yeah. We had some special memories, and just being down there and walking around, seeing all the different sites, and and us also having in the back of our minds that we got to go out there and we got to play. We got to keep doing what we've been doing. And I think the team did an amazing job of just staying focused and, not getting too excited about all the stuff that we saw down there. And but after we played the game, then we had some fun.
Then you guys partied.
We had some fun there. That's right.
It's a great city to be in after a win.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely.
Well, Steve, looking at this Broncos team, there's been a lot of talk this week just about the defense's performance. I know head coach Sean Payton put it quite frankly that they didn't play, well enough. Yeah. So, Steve, for you, what kind of stood out to you on Sunday, and what do you think the focus should be this week as they head into that Dolphins game?
Yeah, just didn't seem like at times everyone was on the same page. Had some communication issues, some flat out just breakdowns where people didn't cover the person they were supposed to cover. And then just the urgency. I saw it from some players, but I just didn't see that from 11 players on every single play. And to win in the NFL, you have to see that a majority of the plays. You got to see all 11 guys flying around to the ball, reading their keys, and taking decisive action on the football field. And that's a little bit lacking right now. Hopefully, it's just because it's a new kind of a new defense. And they're still getting used to it, and everybody else. So, but yeah, it's something that can be fixed. But the guys they have to be intentional about, hey, we got to get this right, and they got to work on it in practice and show it in the games.
Yeah, definitely. Steve, are you concerned at all in terms of tackling? I know that was kind of a big issue, especially in the second half.
That's another thing that in practice, I mean, you're not going to hit live, but you can kind of simulate that. And even when you're going up against the ones, you can play full speed right up and go right up and like you're going to make the tackle and then pull off at the last minute. I was always a big guy of making sure that during the week you hit the big bag at least once, just to make sure that your body is always used to having that physical contact. Because I think once you get in the game and you haven't really had a lot of contact, sometimes guys can just shy away from the contact, not even really knowing that, hey, it's because I haven't hit anybody in over a week. So, hopefully they can, get into that mindset that, hey, we're going to be physical, we're going to fly around, and they're not going to have to worry about getting injured or the aches and pains because they've done it during the week.
Right. Steve, I don't know if you remember, but on last week's show, I asked you who you're most excited to see in week 2. And you said Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito.
Oh, man.
They had great games.
They really did. They were flying around. I love that. And just seeing those guys, and, especially Nick Bonito, man. Nick Bonito, when he makes a play, it's just so exciting for me. And he's so fast and flexible. Still in the run. I saw a couple of plays in the run he struggled with, but in the passing game, yeah, he did a really nice job. Both of those guys. And, also Randy Gregory, I thought, had some nice pressure too. So, the edge, they're looking decent.
Yeah, Steve, looking at, this offense, I know this is the second week in a row we kind of saw them get off to a faster start, Russell Wilson and company. They got up to a 21-3 lead in the second quarter, but then came out a little bit slower in the second half. They weren't able to find the end zone again until, the time it expired with that Hail Mary pass to Brandon Johnson. What do you feel like changes for them in the second half of these games?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if they get a little tired or, the coaches are changing up the play calling. I'm not sure, but something it seems like definitely changes in the second half. And, maybe they just have to build up that endurance for and the belief that they can have, 6, 7, 8 scoring drives where, hey, they got to go to distance or, they'll have, 4 or 5 plays and then a big play. Well, you got to get into the rhythm of scoring and believing that you can score and having the confidence that regardless of who we're playing, we're going to put some points up. And, that may be one of the bigger issues is that we haven't had that in this offense. We haven't had it where we're going down the field scoring points every single time. And we have the offense in, and you look at the plays, man, they're working beautifully. I was like, man, I like this. And many times over the last few years, we run plays, and you could see that the timing's off a little bit, on the screen plays, the lineman gets out there just a second too soon or too late, whereas it looks like this year they're right on time with that. And but again, I think we just got to have that mentality that we're going to score every single time. And I don't care if it takes us 10 times, we're going to score 10 times. We got 10 drives, we're going to score 10 times.
I mean, you mentioned Marvin Mims Jr. Let's look at the rookies then, because they had, they stepped up big for this offense. Marvin Mims and Julian McLaughlin, they both scored touchdowns in the first half. But then we didn't really see them, get the ball at all in the second half of the game.
Yeah, and, Coach Sean Payton addressed that in his press conference. And I agree with him. I saw Cortland and Jerry and those guys out there doing a lot of blocking. And, hey, you got to throw everybody a bone. And so just really trying to get everybody involved. Sometimes it's kind of tricky because, you want to win, you want to score points, but you also got to, especially receivers, man. Most receivers, I'm not saying Cortland is like this. Rob was one of the guys who wasn't like this. But most receivers are divas. They gotta have the ball. They gotta get the ball early. They gotta be shown some love. So, and it's just part of football. That's how they are. No disrespect to them, but you want to get them involved. You gotta take care of you guys. So
right.
Sometimes you gotta spread it around.
Well, Steve, this is something we talked about a little bit on yesterday's show. Head coach Sean Payton, he came out and said that this team needs to learn and understand how not to lose games.
Yeah.
For you as a former player, what do you think the key really is for this team to learn that?
Well, I think one is, when you make those mistakes, the penalties, I think that's, one of the primary areas he's talking about is you jump off sides, hey, yourself 10 push-ups, 20 push-ups, something to just, not anything too big, but just where you think about like, hey, I don't want to do that again. Every time I have a penalty, I'm hurting my team. And, Mike Shanahan instilled that in us that we're going to go out there, we're going to kick those guys' butts, but we're going to do it within the structure of the game where we're not going to hurt our team and set us back. Because we had guys who had attitudes, who, were anxious to get to the ball carrier. Guess what? You got to wait. You got to wait till the ball snap. You can't be so anxious that you're jumping off sides and, you're having the penalties. But every time there's a penalty, you're hurting the team. So whatever you got to do to clean that up, and that's for all players, jumping off sides. You got to clean it up because you're hurting your team every time you do that.
Definitely.
And, and Mike kind of had us feeling like, hey, you have a penalty, it's kind of selfish. You're being kind of selfish. So get that stuff together.
That's a good point. Well, Steve, we'll finish off the episode here with some Famine Questions.
All right.
Tua has the quickest time to throw among all starting quarterbacks right now. So how do you think that will impact the Broncos' defensive game plan on Sunday?
Well, obviously, when quarterbacks are releasing the ball quickly, it's going to be difficult to get there and make sacks on them.
Right.
So, I would imagine, should you even try to blitz, right? Should you have more people back in coverage? And I'm sure, I've never been a defensive coordinator. I did low league ball, but it's much different at this level. But, that's going to be a chess match, determining, which defenses do you run. You have the linemen go to the line of scrimmage, get a bunch of the tall guys, get those hands up. Tua's not a tall quarterback, but he's very, very accurate.
Yeah, that's true.
So, that's going to be a challenge. That's going to be a challenge for us. And, we know the speed that they have at the wide receiver position, tight end position. They're a talented offensive unit. So we're going to be on all P's and Q's this week.
Yep, definitely going to be a tough matchup on Sunday. Steve, appreciate you joining the show.
Thank you, Sid.
Thanks for your insight.
Absolutely.
And Broncos fans, don't forget, Paramount Plus is your streaming home for every local NFL and CBS game this season. Visit ParamountPlus.com to start your free trial and stream Russell Wilson and the team as they battle the league's best. Plus, get an all-access pass to 24/7 NFL content with CBS Sports HQ, Fantasy Football Today, NFL Slime Time, and more. And this year, Paramount Plus is your streaming destination for Super Bowl 58. Another action-packed Broncos season awaits on NFL on CBS, so make sure to stream Paramount Plus from any device all season long. Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll meet you right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube tomorrow for another episode. I'll see you all then.